What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazique, aka Unique Mazique, the hardest working man in sports and gaming. I'm a Fight Guy, Forbes contributor, and I also write for Heavy.com. We're going to talk about more of UFC 249. We went over the early prelims. If you didn't get a chance to see that, make sure that you click that button in the upper right corner of the screen. It'll show you my odds and prediction picks for every fight on this card. We're going through one fight at a time. We are in the mid-level prelims now, and we're talking Uriah Hall against Jacare Souza. Jacare coming back down to middleweight for this fight. If we're being honest, Jacare is at a position where it's a lot of fighters on this card who cannot afford a loss. Like, they are in something of a must-win situation, and you'd have to think that Jacare might be one of those guys. I mean, if you look at he'll be 41 years old in December. It's coming down to it. He hasn't ever got that title shot that he's been chasing for so long. It's time for him to really, if he's going to do something with his career in the UFC, moving towards a title, he's got to get this victory, and it is not going to be an easy one, obviously. Let's start off by looking at the odds, courtesy of Bet Online. Jacare is actually a minus 125 favorite to win this fight, plus 105 for Uriah Hall, which is pretty interesting. I don't know. How do you see that? I would love to know what you guys think in the comment section about that. Are we looking at that as that is a disrespect to Uriah Hall, who we know is one of the classic underachievers in the sport? If you base that off of what he's been able to accomplish and what his actual skill set is. But he is an underdog against a 41-year-old Jacare Souza, which obviously we're not trying to take anything away from Jacare. We all know what kind of fighter he is. But Jacare is on a 2-fight losing streak. So we're going to get into more of that in a second. But had to break down what those odds are and tell you guys who the favorite is. Let's look at the last 3 fights. Let's start off with Uriah Hall. He's actually on a 2-fight win streak. He beat Shoeface Antonio Carlos Jr. He also took down Bevan Lewis, that was a weird one because Bevan Lewis actually had control of that fight, got caught late in the 3rd round and got knocked out. Before that, Uriah Hall was taken out by Paulo Costa. I thought he fought well in that fight. I thought he had an opportunity to win. I just didn't think he had enough to push past the line at the end of the fight. Ended up getting stopped in the 2nd round. Just kind of didn't have what I felt was the intestinal fortitude he needed to get that victory. But still, I didn't think it was a shameful performance. And if you go back as far as the last 4 fights, he's 3-1 in his last 4 fights. So he's not having a bad go of it right now. On the other hand, Jacare is not faring anywhere nearly as well. Jacare right now is on a 2-fight losing streak. He lost to a split decision to Jan Blachowicz in his last fight. Lost a unanimous decision to Jack Hermanson before that. He did knock out Chris Weidman, a guy who, if you ask me, I'm not even sure if Chris Weidman should be fighting anymore. Things just haven't looked well for Chris Weidman lately. But he knocked Weidman out in the 3rd round in a fight of the night performance. But Jacare does not want to find himself in a 3-fight losing streak. That's something that's absolutely totally foreign to him. He's never, right now, this 2-fight losing streak he's on is the most he's ever had in the Zuffa era, going all the way back to 2008 when he was still competing at Dream. He'd never had a 2-fight losing streak. Now he's facing a 3-fight losing streak. As I said, this is really looking like a must-win fight for him. So, who's trending up and who's trending down? It's quite obvious. Uriah Hall is on the rise. Jacare seems to be on the decline, but obviously that doesn't determine who's going to win the fight. Let's look at some statistical areas for this fight. If you look at reach and length, Uriah Hall has insanely long arms for his height. He's 6 feet tall, but has a 79-inch reach, which is significant. It augments his already outstanding striking ability. Jacare, you could argue, has very short arms for someone who is 6'1". He's actually an inch taller than Uriah Hall, but according to UFC fight stats, Jacare's reach is only 72 inches. So you're giving up 7 inches in reach, despite being an inch taller, which is really rare. If you look at all combat sports, sometimes you'll see a guy with a little bit longer arms, even though they might be the same height, but to give up 7 inches in reach and you're an inch taller is pretty different. But looking at strike accuracy, they're about the same. Uriah Hall's a little bit more precise. 50% of his shots he lands. He is landing 3.31 strikes per minute to 2.54 for Jacare. But we know Jacare is better as a boxer as of, I would say, the last 5 to 7 years of his career. But we know that that's really not where he gets it done. Now, let's talk about defense, though. Uriah Hall, for some reason, takes more strikes than he probably should. He's a better athlete, has better instincts than this, but he's absorbing 3.57 strikes per minute in his fights. Defense is only 53%. He's only, evading 53 of the shots thrown at him. Jacare is only eating 2.81 shots per minute, and he's evading at 62%, which is pretty interesting because Jacare does have pretty good head movement in the stand-up, but you just would think that when you talk about stand-up skills overall, Uriah Hall would seemingly have an edge there. And I won't go as far to say as he doesn't, but these statistics make it pretty interesting. Where you're really going to see a real gap here from a skill set standpoint is if this fight goes to the ground. Jacare is one of the greatest Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioners that we've ever seen in mixed martial arts. If he gets the fight to the ground, very few guys are able to stay with him there. He's not fantastic at getting takedowns, only a 38% takedown accuracy there, but he goes for them consistently. 2.5 takedown attempts over 15 minutes, which is pretty significant. It's dropped a little bit of late because he is much more comfortable sticking with his boxing. And he's been really pretty good throwing that power right hand, but he is a bit one-dimensional on the feet, which sometimes I think can kind of get him in trouble if he stays there too long. As far as takedown defense, Uriah Hall's been pretty good. He does want to stay on his feet, but 69% is where he is on takedown defense. Jacare's not going to need takedown defense against Uriah Hall. He's not going to be taken down at all, but he does have a 60% takedown defense. If this fight goes to the ground, let's talk about the styles, because this is really where the winner or loser is going to be dictated here. If this fight goes to the ground, obviously Uriah Hall is at a massive disadvantage. He cannot grapple at all with Jacare. Jacare is a master down there. We've never seen Uriah Hall have success on the ground. As a matter of fact, I don't even think he has a submission victory to his credit in the UFC, maybe not even his career. Definitely doesn't have one in the UFC. That's not where he wants to be. He wants this fight standing. He wants to be able to pick Jacare apart there. Will he be able to do it? I'm going to say I believe he will. And here's the reason why. I think that there is a path in this fight for Jacare to be able to win. He is the favorite. I think there's a path for him to win. But what I've noticed with Jacare, especially in the last 3 to 5 years, is that he's not seemingly comfortable fighting to his strengths, which is getting the fight to the ground, dominating in that way. I can kind of understand why he's been a little bit resistant to it, because he's been pretty disrespected overall from a matchmaking standpoint with the UFC. You can make the argument he should have already had his title shots. He hasn't been getting them. Maybe he's been feeling the pressure to win in an exciting manner, and maybe not enough people find the ground and the ground game in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to be enough. And maybe he's feeling the pressure to win fights by knockout. He's gotten some respect when he's done that. But I think it's gotten him away from what his real strength is, and that's on the ground. And I'm going to tell you, in this matchup, if he messes around too much on the feet with Uriah Hall, depending on which Uriah Hall we see, because Uriah Hall is definitely known to show up as Clark Kent sometimes instead of Superman. If he stays on his feet too long against Uriah Hall, this one ends poorly, and I think Uriah Hall could even get a stoppage victory here. If he can just stay on his feet and pick Jacare apart on his feet, he could easily get a unanimous decision. But Jacare is 41 years old. This is very odd circumstances surrounding UFC 249. I can see him getting stopped. Love Jacare, but I could absolutely see him getting stopped, and that's going to be my official prediction. This is me going for the underdog. So if you're looking at it at this plus 105, which is pretty tight odds, I think there's great line value here. I'm going with Uriah Hall by a second round TKO, and we'll see what happens from there. But I appreciate you guys watching as always. If you dug this pick, if you dug this take, make sure that you click that subscribe button as well as the notifications bell. I appreciate you watching as always. God bless and peace.